Hey, you guys, welcome back. It is Mind Your Money Monday here in the community, and I am super excited. This week, we kick off our series on Mind Your Money. Last week, we were doing a little bit of work before the work, so today, we're going to really get started with the work. I hope you came prepared with your pens and your paper so we can get started. Let me know if you guys are ready to get started. Say, I'm ready in the comments, you guys. So I'm not going to be here long. We're going to make this good. We're going to make this quick. And we're going to give you some meat that you can work with and be ready for next week as well. Hey, Joanna. Thank you for joining, love. Thanks for joining. I'm super excited about this series on Mind Your Money. So many of us have really good goals and a lot of dreams, but at the base of it, finances is at the root. And so in order to see these dreams come into fruition, we have to have our financial foundation in place. And that's what this series is all about. Some of us are business owners with one or multiple businesses. We're considering a business, or we're looking at ways to scaling up, or maybe business is not your thing. Maybe you want to get into a new home. Maybe you want to refinance a home. Maybe this is the last year for one of your children getting ready to move on to college, and you want to be able to establish funding for them in that area as well. So this is going to help you. We're going to get our money organized over the next few weeks and get a better and solid foundation in the process. So let's get started, you guys. There's going to be 3 things that you have to have established from the get-go. We did some work before the work. Now let's start laying it out. And this is where this journal is going to be put to use right from the start, because there are going to be some thought-provoking questions and some things that I want you to consider and be ready for the weeks to come going forward. So the first thing when it comes to minding your money, you guys, you've got to be able to establish what your financial goals are. And there are certain things that we say we want, but why are we not achieving these things? So number one question I want you to write on your paper: what are your 3 biggest challenges in the terms of finances? So let me give you an example. I don't pay my bills on time. I don't have any savings, or I have a habit of running up huge bills, whether it's on a credit line, credit card, or just really spending all my earnings on wants rather than needs. So that's the first thing I want you to establish a financial goal by knowing what are your 3 biggest challenges when it comes to money. Write that down. You may not find 3. You might have one huge one that seems to be an anchor when it comes to developing and getting your money more organized. That's the first thing. Here's the second thing when it comes to establishing those financial goals that I want you to put on there. What are your top 3 goals for the year? Now, we know we're coming to the end of 3rd quarter, getting ready to go into 4th quarter. But when it comes to your money, the day you decide to make a change or make a shift, that's when your year begins. The year doesn't necessarily start in January. It may not start in April, or it might not start at the top of 3rd or 4th quarter, whatever day that is. So today was whatever day it is, whatever day you're listening to this video, that is where your year begins. And so I want you to write on there your top 3 financial goals. I see you do agree there. So is it, I want to save for a down payment? Is it, I want a new car? My car is on its last leg. Whatever it is, I want to be able to learn how to budget more. So we're going to cover some of those things, but you have to know what those goals are for the next 365 days. Remember, your year does not have to begin in January. It begins now. So that is the second thing when it comes to establishing your financial goals, is knowing what are your top 3 goals for the year. And here's the third one in that series when it comes to establishing financial goals, you guys. What are your top 3 financial strengths? If you're in a relationship, there's usually a spender and a saver. One is much stronger in one area. One may be a little bit stronger in the other area. You may not be strong as strong in a specific area, but you want to know where you are, because those same strengths can help you once we reach a certain area. So if we're talking about, let me give you an example what a financial strength is. You already have life insurance in place for your loved ones should you transition earlier than anticipated. That's one strength that you might have. If it's a strength that might be that I pay my bills on time every month without a doubt, I don't have any late fees. That's a financial strength. Just because you don't have the designated amount saved for your venture going forward doesn't mean that you are not strong in a specific area. So I want you to write that down. What are your top 3 financial strengths? Because it's going to help you as we continue to push through these series. When we get to a specific spot, you'll be able to identify, is this an area of weakness, or if this is something that I'm strong in. And it might be something that you can share with one of the members in our group on how you've been able to overcome a specific area when it's in your finances that might be able to serve somebody else. September is a good month for me to evaluate. It is. It's at the bottom of third quarter, especially being a business owner, Johanna. Hey, Sarah, thanks for jumping in, love. Being a business owner, we start to look and begin to wrap up in preparation for the end of the year. For the last quarter, we set our budgets for to be at the top of the next quarter coming up. So September is a really good time to be able to start to evaluate those things. So in the first step, remember, we have 3 things that we're going to be looking at when it comes to solidifying our money journey. The first thing is establishing your financial goals. And within those establishing the financial goals, I need you to write in your journal, what are your 3 biggest challenges in the terms of finance? The second thing I want you to write is, what is your top 3 goals for the year? Remember, the year starts today, not January necessarily. Whenever you find and you make a decision to shift things, that's when your year begins. I hate paying late fees. I absolutely agree with you, Sarah. It is, people don't realize the hidden charges behind late fees. They add up over time. I had someone that I was just helping set some budget and looking at some of the things that they were having some challenges. And when we looked back, we saw where there was $600 just in late fees in one area. That wasn't even counting all the areas that we have to manage when it comes to our finances. So paying late fees is one of those things that might be a weakness for someone else, but it seems like it's one of your strong points, Sarah. So that's the third thing in establishing financial goals, is what are your top 3 financial strengths. I want you to write that down in your journal because it's going to be important as we move forward in this series. Here's the second thing that you've got to get established, you guys. You have to be willing to examine your past. Some of the things that we're encountering through our adulthood, through when it comes to being a better steward with our money, or when it comes to managing our monies, is some of the hidden things that we saw growing up or behaviors that we continue to do that are not serving us. So we're going to go over a couple of those. I'm going to give you about 3 of those. I have a whole long list, and there'll probably be some thought-provoking questions I drop in as our series progress, and maybe through the week, something else that you can think about in your journal. But the first thing I want you, when you begin to examine your past, how did you learn about money? That's the first thing. I was a sophomore in high school before I had my first financial lesson, and that did not come from home. That came from one of my economics teachers in high school. So that was my first introduction to money. I didn't learn about it at home, so I didn't know the benefit of saving, investing, managing, none of that. That was my first insight, and it came from one of my educators in high school. But it was an interest. It was interesting to me because it was a topic that I wasn't introduced to. So a lot of times when we start to look back and examine our past with money, we realize that we didn't have the lessons. And that's not an excuse for the now, because now we're much more mature, much better to understand. When it comes to managing money, you guys, it is really an elementary level when it boils down. So if we complicate it, it's going to be complicated. If we simplify it, it will be simplified. But a lot of times we don't even have the education when it comes to managing our money, being a better steward. So the time is now. That's why this series is going to be phenomenal for those of you guys that just doesn't have the base for that. But examine your past. Let me know, how was your first time? Or when was the first time that you learned about money? Was it as an adult or was it a child? Put it in a comment for me, you guys. I want to know how you were able to begin to get those money lessons. Second part of that, was the training adequate enough? In high school, of course, you're not as focused. So it was my first introduction to it. So I was interested in the topic. So that was my first thing. The training, I guess it was good enough for a high school level. And when I think about it, some of the things is what I still do now. I learned how to balance a checkbook. I've learned how to write a check. I learned my first encounter about credit cards. We didn't touch loans. We didn't touch mortgages, none of those things, but just simple checking account, saving account, how to write a check. So for that level, it was adequate enough. It wasn't enough to sustain me for the things that I encountered throughout adulthood. So was moving from and I closed on my credit cards and learned that was a bad move. And that was very early on in your 20s. Absolutely, Johanna. And we'll talk about that as we progress through the series as well. Credit cards. I only have one. Credit cards are not a bad thing. Credit cards can be a great tool for those who can store their money properly. When I first got married at 18, that's when you learned. That's awesome. Basics in school before college. Perfect. So you guys write that down because it'll be important. You'll be able to go back and pull up some of that information and see, how important this was for today. And here's another thing I want you think about. Whether you was raised in a single parent home or a dual parent household, did your parents argue about money? Or did your mom argue about it? Did it seem like, or your dad argue about it? Or did it always seem like it was a thorn in their side? Because sometimes we take those memories into our adulthood now, and we don't realize that we saw that behavior modeled and not really knowing where the source was, but it can be corrected. Money issues, finances, those are up there in the top categories when it comes to divorces and things like that in our society, is those money arguments and not being able to overcome that because no one wants to listen. Because it comes down to listening, you guys, when it comes to finances and feeding off each other's strengths. And instead of focusing on each other's weaknesses and blaming each other for what went wrong, who spent too much, who doesn't want to spend, those different areas are not coming in alignment on this. So I want you to think back as you're journaling, was this a modeled behavior that I saw growing up? Did my parents or my parent argue a lot about money? So that's step number 2, you guys, when it comes to setting up our money journey, minding our money, is examining the past. Number 1, how did you learn about money? Number 2, was that training adequate? And number 3, did you see the money behaviors modeled? Was it arguing? Was it a loving environment? What were those feelings when you encountered money? Here's the third thing, you guys. We did establishing your financial goals. We did examining your past. And now we want to move forward. How can we move forward? We've got to know where we're coming from, right? Because we don't want to get stuck there and stay there and say that there's no hope. And what we do know is that we can move forward. Again, I have a couple of more questions for you guys. It was my store cards basics in school, college before. Okay, cool. Moving forward, you guys, I want you to ask, When you first left home, how was your relationship with money? I remember leaving home at 20 years old. Of course, all I had in the area of money management was what I learned during high school. I left home and I moved in with a friend of my mom's when I moved to Texas. So I was still in, not necessarily 100% on my own, but I was still had to handle certain things. Okay, transportation to school, understanding financial aid, making sure I have enough money for food, those things. And those things was like, okay, I'm just going to jump in and I'm going to either sink or swim. And at that time, I don't even remember asking for help. So think about that, you guys. When you left home for the first time, how did you manage your money? From the first time. I'm not talking about if you had to return home, come back, go, do that back and forth like we find our children doing now, back and forth, back and forth. What was your first relationship when you left? And did you begin to ask for help? In my case, I did not ask for help. And I just it was a sink or swim situation. But were your bills paid on time? I moved out after 6 months into my own place. That's when I learned about paying rent on the time, paying on the first. And if I didn't pay on time, I was going to have to pay additional late fees each day going forward. If I didn't pay my lights, I wasn't going to have lights. If I didn't pay my water bill, I wasn't going to have hot water. So those things I learned real fast. Okay, girl, you got to get a handle on this. And paying my bills and my utilities is number one because I don't like to take cold showers. And I was not wanting to go back home, so I had to make it work. I was in college and had 2 great jobs. Also, awesome. Here's another thing. If you're married right now, or living with someone who's in charge of the finances. Hey, Tanya, thanks for jumping in. All right, let me see. I think I missed that comment. I said 18, I worked full-time as a bank teller, moved in. My big at the time, sink or swim, no help. Absolutely. It was a sink or swim. I'm going to make it work. Or, it just wasn't what it was. Very immature. I was with the mindset, I'm going to make it work. I'm not going back home. It's just going to have to work. 20 years old. I'm like, no, I'm going to make this thing work. I paid on time and did it. Awesome, Johanna. See, those are the things that I want you guys to write when it comes to your strengths, because just like you and Sarah says she doesn't like late fees, so in order to avoid late fees, it means paying your bills on time. So if you're married or you're living with someone right now who's in charge of the finances and does that arrangement work? So in my home, I pay all the bills. My husband is the breadwinner, so he makes majority of the money. I store that and I pay our bills and make sure those things get done. And it works. It works for us. There was a time I was feeling very overwhelmed, and I asked him, I said, I need you to take over these duties for a minute until I'm ready to take that. And so it gave him another viewpoint. It's like, okay, this is all that's involved. So we was able to work off of each other's strengths and weaknesses at the same time. Got married. I was still in school. He worked and he made it work. Absolutely. And we made it work. Thank you. Yeah. See that you just kind of learned to, what's going to work. I don't think anybody want to go without their utilities, right? So that's like priorities, then the fun. Priorities, then the fun. So we begin to think about that when we're moving forward. Okay, I have set these goals. I've examined the past, but I'm ready to move forward. And are my current arrangements working right now? Number 3, when it comes to moving forward, we were all talking about this sink or swim, but you got to grow process, right? Are you a dreamer and just figure that things are just going to work it out, or do you lay out a plan? What you're going to find out as we begin to organize our money, as we move towards this money journey, it's going to require a level of planning. So if you've been in that dreamer mode and figure that things are just going to work its way out, bills are just going to get paid, debt's going to be finally gone, without a plan, that's going to be some of the things that we work through during this process, you guys. And number 4, when it comes to moving forward, what's your biggest financial regret? Is it student loans? Is this a mortgage? Is it a loss of equity? Was it a loss of investments? What, or not investing? I want you to think about that as we're moving forward as well. So you don't carry around that load of regret. As we're cleaning up things, as we're beginning to become better stewards, as we're moving towards this money journey, the past is the past, you guys. We can't do anything about it. We can recognize where we can be stronger in. We can recognize the areas that we need help. We can recognize that we need to ask for help in that area as well. I'll share with you guys, one of my biggest financial regret would be in the area of student loans. I've shared with you guys on a previous video, I've been through personal bankruptcy before, but that wasn't one of my biggest regret. My biggest regret financially was my second college degree that I attained. I took on student loans, and I took on student loans, and it was also a career that I chose not to go into. So I have this time spent, but I also have money spent on there that for a long time, it had me in a pit. I was second guessing myself. I was second guessing what decisions I'm going to make forward. Is it worth it to invest any more money into training, into investing into myself? That was a thorn for so long. And then I realized, guess what? Some great things came out of that. I have 2 long life friends. We've been friends now for 8 years that I met during my training. I learned some things about myself during that training process. And I just learned it was a lesson that when it comes to doling out a lot of cash for college or education, you need to think twice. And that goes for anyone, and even for our children. They have these big goals, these big dreams, but if they can't give you a plan, and I understand at 18, 19, 20, they may not be able to tell you what they want to do for the rest of their life, but they have to be able to tell me what they're going to do for the first decade of their life, because we can boil that down to a fiscal number, you guys, and see, does this plan outweigh what I have to spend? So that was one of my biggest regrets. Let me know, you guys, do you have any financial regrets? If you want to be transparent in that area, put it for me in the comments. I'd like to know if there was an area that you have a financial regret, so we can get rid of that now. We can move past it. We can begin to get things in alignment. We can make better decisions going forward to set our bills and pay them. We do not have financial. Awesome. We selling both here, work both pay. Awesome. So that works there, Sarah. She was answering the question that I asked earlier about if you're married or if you're living with someone, and how does that financial arrangement work? Let me know in the comments. If you're catching this on the replay, do you have any financial regrets? Let's talk about it. Let's get it written down on paper, and let's move on, because this series is going to be all about organizing our money, learning how to mind your money, learning how to be a better steward of your money. After we establish those 3 things, number 1, establish your financial goals. Number 2, we want to examine the past. And the third and final thing, we want to learn how to move forward so we can begin this journey strong. I appreciate your time today, you guys. I hope you found this of value. Let me know what your number 1 takeaway was in the comments. And I look forward to seeing you guys back here next Monday at 8 o'clock. Central Standard Time, as we discuss more ways on how to mind your money. Get ready. This is going to be a fun ride. And I thank you all again for your time. I'll see you on the next video.